All right, so let's talk business first. Basically, we are now through the part of the semester in which there are the usual weekly homeworks. And what that means business-wise is from here on out, there's only 3 more assignments that you need. There's going to be 2 what are kind of weekly assignments, but they're going to be basically the rest of the semester. You can think about it as paper prep time. Everything we do from here on out is going to be directly related into the paper you have to write at the end of the semester. So we have 4 class periods worth of material in which we talk about a particular ethical issue. And there's going to be 3 of those. There's going to be trolley problems. Then there's going to be, wow, we're actually getting pretty good turnout now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Wow, this is more than we had last week. So we're going to have trolley problems today. Then we will have online hate speech next week. And then the week after that will be cultural relativism. Now, what this means, practically speaking, is I'm going to send an updated syllabus tomorrow, probably. Basically, I realized that I would much rather be able to talk in person about each of these ethical topics. So what that means is this week, we're only going to have class today, but there's not going to be a weekly assignment. And then next week, we're only going to have class on Tuesday. So it's basically everything after this class gets pushed back one. And what that means is the final paper will also be due a week after the last class instead of on the last class. And I will be sending an email and a new syllabus all about this. So don't worry, it'll all be clear as we go along. So that's the background. Expect the schedule to change a little bit. I'm going to send an email about it sometime, probably tomorrow. Also, remember your weekly assignment is due on Thursday instead of the usual yesterday. So if you haven't done it yet, you still have a little time. It's another one of those, go online, find some ads or political speeches, etc. All right. Any questions thus far? Are we doing all right? Okay, then. What I want to talk to you about today is, as I said, we're moving on from basically the way you can think of it is up to this point in the semester has been the class is called Ethics and Critical Thinking. Thus far in the semester, we've been really focused on this one. The end of the semester is going to be applying this to this. So this class and the next 3 class periods worth are going to be talking about ethics. So what is ethics? I think I may have talked about this at the very beginning of the semester, but what is ethics? Anyone want to say, or should I just jump into it? Anyone want to say what ethics is? The way I usually define it and the way that the book does, and I think a useful one, you hear this word thrown around and has different meanings at different times, like so many words do, like we talked about last week with ambiguity. But in this context, when I use ethics, it's going to be talking, you can think of it as the study of morality. So the key word, you know what study of means. The key word here is morality. What is morality? What do we mean by morality? How do you achieve morality? Those are the sorts of questions that you look at in ethics. So generally speaking, then, what is morality? What does it mean to be moral, or what questions come up, or what sort of issues are tied to morality? So, and this is a general question. What do we mean by morality? If you say someone's a moral person, what do you mean? Or you say that's a moral question, what are you talking about? Aaron.
Isn't like morality like the concern of, or like the distinctions between the goods and the bads?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. So morality is tied in with like good versus bad, and the other one is, another way of talking about it is right versus wrong. And it's a certain type of right versus wrong. It's not just a right versus wrong in terms of like, that's the right knife to use to cut a piece of meat. It's rather a sense of right and wrong, or good and bad, that applies kind of universally to human behaviors. So it's not like good for a certain purpose, like this marker is good for writing on a board. It's rather that something is good or bad we kind of think of it as something that generally covers all our behaviors in every sort of case. So an example, what's an example of a moral issue? What is something, or another way of putting it is, what is a moral dilemma you might have? And again, a dilemma is when you have two different choices and you can only choose one of them. What would be a moral question or moral dilemma? What would be an example of that? Anyone have any?
Maybe it could be if you found money on the floor and then you think that you know who it belongs to, but you really want to buy lunch or something.
That's an excellent one. So yeah, in that case, you've got this. That is a classic moral question. What is the right thing to do here? Is the right thing to do to return the money? Or if it's not that, like if it's $5, can you just hang on to it and buy yourself lunch?
No, you have to give it back.
Yeah, so that's generally people's view, is this is a case in which it seems like there's clearly a right thing to do, or what the good thing to do is. Then there are other ones that are a little more tricky. So should you, and what we're going to be talking about today is some of the trickier ones, but is it okay to tell a white lie to not hurt someone's feelings? If somebody says, does this dress make me look bad? And you know they really like the dress, or does this shirt make me look bad? And they really spent a lot of money and really like the shirt. Do you lie and say, no, it looks great? Or do you tell the truth? That is another sort of simple moral question. More complicated ones would be cases in which, you know, to go with the COVID case, early on in COVID, when there weren't enough, what the hell are those things called? Why can't I remember this? I wanted to say incubator, but I know that's not right. That's what you put babies or chickens in. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyone? The tube air pushers. Why can't I think of this word?
Ventilator?
Ventilators. There we go. Yeah, ventilator. I don't know. I guess ventilator and incubator sound alike. But yeah, you only have one ventilator and you've got two very sick people. Who gets the ventilator? That is a moral question. So these are the sorts of issues that we mean by moral. And then the question is, well, if this is what it means to be a moral question, how do you're going to find yourself in moral questions all the time, or you're going to find yourself with moral questions that you need to give a moral answer to, or you're going to find yourself in a situation in which you need to decide what the right thing to do is, what the good thing to do is. And the thing is, in these situations, how do you decide what the right thing to do is? Are you going to be able to, you know, run a scientific test where you go, oh, wait, let's mix together these different chemicals and it's going to tell us what the right thing to do is? How is it that you actually go about deciding what the right thing to do is in a certain situation? Practically speaking, if you find yourself in a moral situation, how do you have to solve it?
By thinking of what could be the outcome of the problem.
The key word there is which one? Thinking. You have to think about it. Basically, moral questions don't answer themselves. If you find yourself in a tough moral situation, you have to think about how to go about doing it. And what type of thinking is going to be crucial? Well, it's a complex issue with many different things to consider. So what's going to be key? Critical thinking. And that's why these things are stuck together. When you find yourself in an ethical situation, there's no one you can just go ahead and ask. You can't just go, hey, mom, what's the right thing to do? Your mom's an authority figure, but as we talked about, authority figures aren't always the best way to do it. You can't just, you know, shake a magic 8-ball and hope it gives you the answer. You have to think about what the right or good thing to do is. So that's the background of what ethics is and why it's tied in with critical thinking. Now, there's one more distinction I want to make before we jump into the actual question from this week, which is trolley problems. So this is a distinction between morally required and morally permissible. I don't know if I'm spelling permissible right, but I don't really care. So what's the difference between something that's required and something that's permissible? So what does it mean for something to be required?
You have to do something first.
The key word is the have to. So you have to do something. If something's required, you have to do it. So for instance, at Baruch, there are certain required classes for a major. Those are classes that you have to take to get the major. What is it to be permissible? It's not quite required. What does it mean for something to be permissible?
Something that's allowable.
Say that again.
Something that's allowable.
So it's allowable, but it's not quite that you have to do it. So it's you can do it. And then I guess the last one would be morally forbidden. And what would morally forbidden do? Well, what is it for something to be forbidden?
It's not allowed. It's
Not allowed, or you cannot do it. So cannot or not allowed. And so I bring this up because in ethics, it seems like ethical answers. There are certain things in certain moral situations, there are things you have to do in that situation. There are other times in which certain things you cannot do. And if you were to do them, it would in some sense be wrong. If it's a have to, if you weren't to do them, it would somehow be wrong. And then the morally permissible one is you're allowed to do it, but you don't have to do it. So to go with like an actual concrete example, if you are in a rush to go, like imagine it's back in the day when we actually went into campus and you are rushed to get to class and there's somebody coming in behind you, and you hold the door, you're deciding, should I hold the door for this person? So is there anything that's morally required in this situation? Is there anything that's morally permissible? And is there something that's morally forbidden? So in this sort of case, if you hold the door for this person, is this required? Are you a terrible person if you don't hold the door when you're in a rush?
No.
No, you're not. It's not really required of you to do it. But so in that sort of situation, in some sense, it's all right not to hold the door. Now, if the person behind you is like somebody who's like you're holding the door at a hospital and there's a pregnant person with a gunshot wound, then it seems like maybe in that case, it's morally required to hold the door for this person. So in this case, it's morally permissible to hold the door and it's morally permissible not to hold the door. Something that's morally forbidden is, just like, let's say, what would an example of something that's morally forbidden be? Something that is morally wrong to do in any, basically, full stop. You're not allowed to do it. And if you do, it's wrong.
Hitting someone.
Yeah, hitting someone. All things being equal, just hitting someone is a morally forbidden thing to do. What would be another one? What are some other things that are morally forbidden?
Bullying.
Yeah, bullying is another one. Like, no matter the situation, it's wrong to bully someone. What's something that's morally required? These can be kind of hard to think of.
Respecting your parents.
Yeah, so say respecting your parents or not showing respect and not being like just not being mean is something that's required. You're required to and you can often think of something that's morally required, its flip side is morally forbidden. So if it's morally forbidden to kill someone, it's morally required not to kill someone, or it's morally required to try to make the world a better place. So that's all the background of this. So does this three-way distinction, required, permissible, forbidden, make sense to people? Okay, so with this in mind, I now want to turn to trolley problems. And trolley problems are something which are a very classic way of getting at certain core ethical issues and ethical concepts. So the idea is that when you're trying to figure out what to do, very often the way we think is we first think of other situations in which it's clear what you should and shouldn't do. Then from those clear cases, you try to get principles, and then you apply them to less clear cases. So for instance, why is it wrong to shoot someone? Well, you think about it and you're like, well, it's going to cause pain to somebody. And then you go, okay, so it must be wrong to cause pain. So therefore, if you find yourself in another situation in which telling the truth will cause someone pain, you think, well, maybe in this case, it's okay because I know causing pain is bad from this other case. So trolley problems are this sort of thought experiment. By a thought experiment, I mean, you think about a situation, you see what your feelings are, and then from that, you try to draw general conclusions using critical thinking skills. So, first off, what's a trolley? And I mean that like, this is the literal question. Kiara?
A train?
Yeah, it's like a little train that runs above ground. So I'm gonna, instead of drawing a trolley, I'm gonna draw a train because I don't know how to draw a trolley without making it look like a box. So let's draw a little choo-choo train. So here's our choo-choo train. So here's the way the trolley problem works. Imagine that you are this person. You're driving the train. You're driving the train along, and all of a sudden you see up ahead of you, there's like steep banks on either side, and in the middle of the track are 5 workers. They're working on the track. So you're, chugga, 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 chugga. And so you're driving this thing, and there's 5 people on the track. You know that if you don't stop the trolley or the train, it's going to run these 5 people over, and trains are big and heavy. People are small and smushy. These 5 people are going to die. However, you will see suddenly that if you're driving this train, that there's also somewhere where you can turn it. And if you turn the train or the trolley, you see there's only one person here. There's one person standing here on the side track. So if you turn the train, your train is going to kill one person. But if you don't turn the train, it's going to kill 5 people. So here's the question. And this is the ethical question. In this sort of situation, what is morally required of you and what is morally permissible? And just to be clear, the reason the trolley problems are famous, and you may have come across these in TV shows or there's references to them in pop culture a lot of the time. The question is, there's not a clear answer. So the question is, what should you do in this situation? What should you do and what must you do? So intuitively, what should you do in this situation? How many of you think you should turn the train? If you're driving the train, if you do nothing, you're going to end up with 5 people dying. If you turn the train, 1 person dies.
Turn the train.
So we've got 3 votes for turn the train. Let's give it a second until your thumbs go away. How many people think you shouldn't turn the train? All right, so we have 3 votes for turn the train, 0 votes for don't turn the train, which means how many people think either one is okay? So both options are okay options, but one of them might just be better. So here's another question is it morally required to turn the train? Is somebody who doesn't turn the train wrong?
No.
No, so a lot of people say that it's not required to turn the train. Some people on the flip side say, like my judgment, and this is just a personal thing, is I think if you don't turn the train, in some sense, you're doing something wrong. But I'm not sure what that, like my mood changes. And here's the interesting thing about these judgments is they change. So if turning the train is the right thing to do, or in some sense, most people seem to think that of these 2 options, while either option is in some sense okay, turning the train is the better option. Why? What is the reason that it's better to turn the train? And another way of thinking about this is just, what is it to decide, or what makes it something right in general? Kiara?
Because
I was just gonna
saving more lives.
So Tajaria says, actually, I'm not sure who was speaking. Somebody said it's going to save more lives. And then what did the other one of you two? Because I couldn't tell who was saying what.
Oh, that wasn't me, but I was saying, isn't this where utilitarianism comes in, where the choice that saves more people, basically, as she said?
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Utilitarianism. So why intuitively is it better? Well, it seems like one of these saves more lives. So here's a question. Why should we care about saving lives? What is it that makes saving lives a good thing? Intuitively, why is it a good thing to save lives or to have fewer people die? What is it?
Because it's morally right to save people's lives when
So
there's a situation.
So it's morally right to save lives. And then so to flip it around, but what makes it morally right? What is it about saving lives that is morally right? What is it? If I tell you here, what's the morally right thing to do? And you say, turn the train. And I ask you, what makes it morally right? You tell me it saves more lives. Now I want to know a little more. What is it about saving lives that's good? And this is pure, we're now into the philosophy part of this course. Intuitively, why do we want to save lives?
Makes us feel good.
One of the things is it makes us feel good. And also, just as importantly, it's more people benefit, or it's just there's more goodness brought about by more people saving lives. If you're dead, you can't have happiness. And also, if you die unexpectedly, your family suffers. There's probably some pain of you dying. And so the answer to this that many people give is that the reason this one is better is that the consequences are better. So in this case, there are the consequences of turning the train. The consequences of turning the train, these consequences are better than these consequences. So, and why are these better? Well, this is where this view called utilitarianism comes in. And what utilitarianism says is that the right thing to do in any situation is the thing that brings about the greatest overall happiness or the greatest overall, utility, but it's basically the greatest overall benefit to the world as a whole. So in this case, if one person dies, that's one suffering family, one person whose life has been snuffed out. If 5 people die, that's 5 times as much suffering. Therefore, the right thing to do in this situation, you look at the consequences of it, and the right thing to do is to kill the person because that's the one with the better consequences understood in terms of the amount of suffering caused. The suffering associated with 1 death is worse than the suffering associated with 5 deaths. So that makes sense. It's kind of like an intuitive, everyday sort of thing. And if you were in this situation, this is probably how you'd think about it. So we all on board with this one?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the case of the first trolley problem. Now what I'm going to do is, so here's the way that very often ethical thinking works. We now have this idea that what makes something the right thing to do is the consequences defined in terms of utility or in terms of, so what is right the thing with the best consequences, understood as most causes most happiness and least suffering. So this is, you can kind of think of it, oh, we just got blurred. Okay, there we go. So you can think of this as like a hypothesis. So the idea is, all right, this is what it means for something to be right. Because when you're doing a trolley problem, what you're basically trying to understand is, what is it to do the right thing? What makes something the right thing? So that if I find myself in a different situation, I know that it's wrong to shoot someone, but what makes it wrong? So that then if I find myself in another situation that isn't as clear, I can apply the same principles. I can reason in the exact same way. So what we're going to do in this case is come up with another example. So this is another example from the reading. So here's a doctor. I'm going to make them green. I don't know why. So imagine that this doctor is a surgeon, and into the doctor's office, or in the hospital, there are 5 people. You've got person 1. I guess I should draw a body. or no, I'll just write up here. This person needs a liver. This person needs a heart. This person needs a liver. This person needs a heart. This person needs a kidney. This person needs another kidney. And let's change this. Yeah, liver. What's another organ a person might? I guess a lung. You can do a lung replacement. Lung. All right. So here's our doctor. These are 5 people in the hospital. Then in comes this person who has, here, we'll draw a little tissue, and this is their nose. And their nose is, where's my blue marker? This person looks like they're some sort of piglet, but that person has a cold. So this is the situation. In this situation, there are 5 people. This person's liver's failing, this person's heart's failing, these 2 people have failing kidneys, and this one's got a failing lung. If they don't get transplants immediately, they're going to die. Straight up, 100% they're going to die. So how might you go about saving them? What is a way that this doctor might save these 5 people?
You might kill the person with the cold.
Yeah, you might kill the person with the cold, harvest their organs, and give each of these people this person's organs. Let's assume that he knows the organs are going to take and all the other stuff. So in a certain sense, this is very similar to the last case of driving the trolley, correct? Like in both cases, you've got 5 people living versus 1 person living. And yet, and if we think about it, the one with the best consequences. So if we say that the right thing to do is always a matter of the consequences, then what should we say? Well, we should say that the right thing to do would be to kill this person and harvest their organs to save everybody else. But what does your gut say, or what is your judgment on the case? What is morally acceptable and what is morally permissible and what is morally required or forbidden in this case? So is it morally permissible to kill this person and harvest their organs? How many people think, well, yeah. How many people think, yes, it's morally permissible to kill this person and harvest their organs? How many people think it's morally forbidden to kill this person and harvest their organs?
I think so.
Okay, so we got 1 vote. How many people think it's morally required to kill the person? Anyone think that the only thing the doctor should do is harvest this person? Generally, most people say what Davian said, which is, no, it is morally forbidden to kill this person. So why is it morally forbidden? What does this say about ethics? Well, it looks like what this example shows is that, well, it's not always just the consequences that matter, or at the very least, there's more to consequences than life or death. There's a difference in these 2 cases. So utilitarianism in a straightaway sense is somehow wrong because there's more to it than just what brings about the greater good for the greater number. Because in a certain sense, it's still 5 people will be happy, 5 people's families will be happy to have them alive versus 1 sad person and 1 sad person or 1 dead person's family. So open question, what's the difference between the 2 cases? What do people think? There's not a clear-cut answer to this. So what is your judgment or what is your gut saying? Why is it that turning the train is acceptable and maybe even required, but harvesting a person's organs is wrong and morally forbidden, even if it saves 5 lives?
Because you have a choice. The other one, you don't have a choice. It's either kill 5 or kill 1. And this one, you could choose to kill or not kill, or. Actually, I don't even think it's your choice. I think it's the person who's sick's choice. It's their life.
Here seems to be, and I'm going to take what you just said and kind of take out the keys here. So here seems to be a difference. There seems to be some difference between like there's a matter of choice here. And it's a matter of what are you choosing to do? And it seems in one case, what you're choosing to do is you're choosing to turn a train. Well, it seems like in the other case, the choice is to actively kill somebody. So it seems like in one case, there seems to be a difference between, in the doctor case, it seems like the difference between kill one person versus let one person, or let 5 people die. While in the first case, it seems like whatever you're doing when you're driving the train is whatever you're doing on the other version. So it'd either be, you can either think of it as kill one person versus kill 5 people. So it does seem like there's some difference here between this killing and letting someone die. So why is it that there's a difference, or what is the difference between killing and letting someone die? Is there a difference here? So what Davian's pointing to is in our gut, it does seem like there is some sort of difference here between killing someone and letting someone die. So why? What is the difference?
You're not committing murder.
So yeah, it seems like there's this thing about letting die versus killing. There's this murder sort of element, or the you caused it. So it seems like what's going on here is that we have this thing tied in with causing the death to come about. There's some difference in terms of you cause it versus you, let me think about this. The best way of putting this. So there's a difference between causing something to happen and just it's happening without you having the ability to stop it and not stopping it. So it seems like what makes them different is you can think about it in terms of consequences. So you could say that the difference between the two cases, in one case, one person is killed, or I guess one person is murdered versus 5 people die of natural causes. So that's the hospital case. And in the other one, it just seems like the difference, the consequences of the two actions are one person is run over versus 5 people are run over. So it seems like what's going on and what this case shows is that there's somehow a difference between the consequences are more fine-grained just than death, just than it's bad. It seems like somehow we have to somehow get our notion of murder or our causing it or it being our choice. Now, just to push back on this notion of choosing, it seems like even in the original case, there's some sense in which you can choose not to turn the train or you can choose to turn the train. So there is still some idea in which you are causing someone to die when you're turning the train, but you are right that there does seem to be some difference here. So that's the first thing to bring up, is it seems like there is this difference between letting die and killing. And one way of trying to describe it is in terms of like the consequences of killing are different than the consequences of letting die. But another way of thinking about this is that maybe we were wrong to look at consequences as the right way to decide whether something is morally right or morally wrong. Maybe what you need to think about is, in some sense, why you performed the action or how you are treating people by doing it. And so this is a flip side, or another way of going about ethics, or another way of thinking about it, which is to think, Deontology is a fancy way of saying duty-based theory of morality. So instead of looking at the consequences of your actions, you instead look at what duties you have to other people based on who we are and what rights we have as human beings. So the reason why it's wrong to murder, and the reason that there's a difference between the killing and letting die, is that when you kill or murder someone, you violate them or you cause them to suffer in a way that doesn't apply in the case of in the Trolley case, where it seems like you're not treating the people different. All that's different is the number of deaths. Well, it seems like if you harvest someone's organs, you're in some sense using them. And so there's this famous theory of ethics on the other side of the utilitarian view, and this is the view of Immanuel Kant. And according to Kant, it's wrong to So it's wrong to use people simply as a means, or it's wrong to use people without simply as a means. Always treat them partly as an end. So I'm going to erase this stuff up here. What are means and ends? What is the difference between, how many people have heard these terms in this sense before? What is a means and what is an ends? Maybe you've heard the phrase, the ends justify the means. What does this mean? That's using a different sense of mean. Mean is ambiguous. Anyone know?
I think the choice is to get the results.
Yeah, so the end is the result, and the means are how, or the choices you make to get to that result. So according to Kant, the reason that it's wrong to murder someone, or the reason that it's wrong to harvest someone and take their organs, is you're treating them simply as a way to reach your goal. And his idea is that human beings, by their very nature, because we think of ourselves as something with value and something that needs to be taken into consideration and something that deserves respect. And we also think that every human being is also like that. Every human being deserves respect to some degree. Therefore, the reason it's wrong to kill someone and harvest their organs is you're no longer treating them as something that is taken into account. And so who was it who said that the person who should have the final say of the organ donor case is the person who walks in with the cold?
I did.
Okay, David. So why is it that we feel better about the case? Like if this doctor went, hey, Mr. Person with a cold, would you be okay if I chopped you open and stole all your organs? And this person said, yes, that would be fine with me. I understand this will save more lives. In this case, how many people have the judgment that the doctor who just takes the person's organs is somehow worse than the one who asks? How many people have this sort of intuition?
I think so.
Yeah, I think everyone generally has this idea. Like if you ask and if they give you permission, then in some sense, maybe it's not morally required. Like if someone says, yes, you have my permission to take my organs and give them to other people, maybe it's not necessary that you go ahead and do that as the doctor, but it certainly seems far more morally permissible than somebody who does it without asking. And so why is this? Well, it seems like by asking, you're treating someone as an end. You're treating someone with respect, or you're asking them. So the idea here is that, all right, let me erase this. So the way to think of this is we have these two ethical theories on the table. So you find yourself in an ethical situation. This is a situation in which a trolley problem type case, and you ask yourself, what's the right thing to do? Well, one possible answer you could give is consequentialist, and specifically utilitarian. Excuse me. And they're going to say the way you decide is you look at consequences, the best consequences. According to, oh, we're all blurry. The other option is to go deontology or deontological. And in that case, you look at, are you treating someone simply as a means? So, according to a deontologist, the reason why you have to not harvest someone's organs is that in the organ harvesting case, what you're doing is you're treating someone simply as a tool for other people's well-being. You aren't taking them into account. So does everyone understand how these two views give different answers to ethical questions? According to one, you look at what a person is doing when they're deciding how to go about a question. When the person comes up with their decision of, should I kill this person? Should I turn the train? That's the deontologist is going to ask, well, what is their reasoning behind it? Are they treating someone? Are they thinking, well, I'm going to use this one person to get a different goal? Or are they instead saying, I'm doing this because, like in both cases, I'm treating someone as an end. It's just that this is a better version. Or you choose the one in which you're treating someone more as an end in themselves, or with more value, you're respecting them. While a consequentialist is always going to say, no, look at what's going to happen after the fact. What is the cause? What does this cause to have happen, etc. So does everyone understand generally what the difference is between these two views?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So the question now at this point is which one's right? Because it looks like consequentialism got it right in one case. So far we've looked at certain cases and we said consequentialists got it right in the first case, but deontology seems to explain why the organ harvesting case is different. However, deontology is also not perfect, it seems like. It seems like there are cases in which deontology can also run into problems. So, for instance, imagine you have this case in which you made a promise to your best friend that you will get dinner with them, but you also made a promise to your grandmother that you'll get dinner with her. How intuitively, how do you go about deciding what's the right thing to do in this case?
I think that it should depend on the urgency.
So what do you mean by urgency here? Because I think you're on the right track. I think you're actually probably, my gut goes in
Like, how long ago did you see your best friend or your grandmother? Are you going to have the opportunity to see either or again?
And so why does that time matter? So this is going to be to try to tease it out. Why does it matter that you've not seen them in a long time?
Because that means that it's more urgent for them to see you.
And why? So I think you're 100% right. I'm just playing devil's advocate here to pull it out. Why is it more urgent, or what is it about it?
That love, if this is someone that you have a loving relationship with, you want to spend time with them. You're supposed to devote time to that person to show that you love them.
So I think in this case, you're 100% right. It seems like there's some sense in which the longer it's gone, the more they need it. In a certain sense, the better the consequences of you going to see them. So it's better to see your grandmother if you haven't seen her in a very long time, because in some sense it will mean more. The consequences will be better. However, what if you go deontology? How are you to decide between these two cases? What is the right thing to do? In one case, you have either way, you're going to have break a promise. So it seems like either case, you're going to be treating somebody not the best. You're not going to be treating them with complete respect. You first told them something and then you went against your word. So it seems like a deontologist in this case isn't going to be able to give us a nice, clear answer in the way a consequentialist could. A consequentialist can say, no, no, no. The right thing to do in this case is to break your promise to the person who the consequence will be better. So if your grandmother won't really mind because you saw her last week, then that's the right thing to do. If your best friend, you haven't seen them in a really long time, then that's the right thing to do. But a deontologist, it seems like in both cases, you're going to be breaking a promise or you're treating somebody not fully respectful. So it seems like deontology doesn't help you in that case. So just to say the whole view, the way that this has gone with these trolley problems are that there are situations in which it seems like we need to decide what to do. And it seems like in certain cases, the way we think points towards our judging the consequences and weighing the outcomes and the number of deaths and the number of lives saved. However, there are other cases in which it seems like what we consider is, are we respecting people? Are we respecting their rights? Are we treating them with respect? Are we treating them in the way equal, like as having the same worth that we have? And it seems like in some cases we lean one way, in some cases we lean the other way. And there's not really a good answer to what the correct way of going about this is. So really the way you can think about what we've just talked about in this class is that each one of these is a potential way of going and thinking about it. And as I said at the beginning of class, the main reason I'm bringing this stuff up is because there's going to be paper topics on this issue. And so one of the paper prompts will be something along the lines of, you can either choose to do this or you can choose to do that. Which is the right answer? And it looks, and the possible answers are going to be a consequentialist view or a deontological view. And so this is just kind of painting the groundwork for how you go about thinking about ethical questions. Anyone have any other questions in this sort of case? All right, let's talk about just some other versions of, let's just try to figure out a few more trolley problems, and then I can let everyone go a little early. But here's just, I think, I basically just want to run thought experiments and see what people's thoughts on this are. Imagine that it's the trolley case. And again, you've got 5 on this side and 1 on this side. But imagine that this one person is your mom and you know it's your mom. What is morally permissible in this case and what is morally required in this case? And what are people's reasoning for it? So is it morally permissible to turn the train? If this is your mother, is that an acceptable thing to do? Or is it just you have to run over those 5 people? What are people's thoughts?
I think it's permissible.
Oh, let's go Kiara then. Wait, say that again.
I think it's permissible too.
It is permissible to run over your mother?
No,
Yes.
it's permissible to kill this
It's
5
permissible
people.
to kill the 5. Is it required to kill the 5 though?
No.
No.
Okay, so both of them are permissible. Out of curiosity, which one do people think is more right? Is it more right to run over your mother or is it more right to go the other way? And I guess
More right to go the other way.
More right to go the other way. So we have some people who say it's more right to kill 5 people if one of them's your mom.
I think that it's morally right to kill your mom. Even though it is your mom, she's still one person. But I would understand why people think otherwise, because that's your mom.
Yeah, so it seems like in this case, and what this sort of discussion is designed to show is just a number of different factors that play in. And I find it very interesting. Aaron's gut feeling is that it's better to kill the 5 people. Kiara's is it's better to kill the 1 person, even if it's your mom. And I think another thing to separate out here is even if you think it's the right thing to do to kill your mother, even if you're Kiara who thinks, and I actually share this in my gut, I think it's the right thing to do is to kill your mother. However, I think another thing is that there's another question you can ask, which is, would you be able to do it? And I think that's a separate sort of issue. Another thing you can do, which is nice, so just like to highlight another feature of the why a consequentialist view seems acceptable or a consequentialist view seems good, is here's another case. Intuitively speaking, imagine that this one person is the cancer curer, and on this side you have 5 convicted murder, let's say convicted mom murderers. So they've killed their mother. So this person over here, there's 5 people here. You've killed 5 mom murderers. Over here, the one person who's ready to cure cancer. What is morally required in this case? In this case, I think many of us have a judgment. Well, let's see, let's test. How many people think it's morally permissible to run over the cancer curer? Is there anyone who thinks that's an okay thing to do? Or does everyone think it's required that you have to run over the mom murderers?
I think you should run over the mom murderers.
That's kind of what my feelings are. And Aaron's got his thumb up. It kind of feels like, yes, the right thing to do here is to run over the mom murderers. Why? What is the reason behind that?
The reason is like the one cancer cure could save millions of lives, and the 5 convicted mom murderers, they took lives already. So I guess it's like a give or take.
Yeah, so it seems like, and this is the way our judgments go, it seems like the consequences of this one are better than the consequences of this one. So here's another case where it seems like maybe deontology is not able to give us an answer, because a deontologist is going to have to say, well, what would a deontologist say? Well, in some sense, the cancer curer is more human or more valuable, and it's okay to treat these mom murderers as like not worthy or without respect because they've killed mom. Or to make it even tougher, let's say they aren't mom murderers, they're just 5 ordinary people. If there's 5 ordinary people over here, and there's one cancer curer over here, let's get morally permissible and morally required. Which is the right thing to do here? How many of you think the right thing to do is to run over the one cancer curer? How many people think the right thing to do is to run over 5 ordinary people? So how many people, let's go run over 5 ordinary people, thumbs or hands or chat boxes. Which is it correct to run over the 5 ordinary people? Okay. How many people think the right thing to do is to run over the cancer curer? So for those of us who think that the right thing to do is to run over the 5 ordinary people, why? Why is the right thing to do to run over these 5 ordinary people?
Because
the ends, the ends justify the means.
Yeah, this is a case in which the end, it seems like these 5 people in the grand scheme of things are, in some sense, their deaths will be offset by all the cancer cured deaths. If, however, if you're going in that way, your judgments are running in a consequentialist sort of direction. However, so if you say run over these people, it's consequentialist. If, however, you say that what would a deontologist say the right thing to do is in this situation? What would they have to say? Well, they're going to have
to run over the 5 people.
Yeah, well, the deontologist is actually going to say, in some sense, in this case, this would be the better one, I think, because in this case, the fact that this person's a cancer curer can have in no way contribute to the case, because in whichever, I guess another way of putting this is the deontologist is going to have to say that whichever way is you treating someone with more respect. So basically, the best way to put it is a deontologist is going to say the right thing to do is don't turn the train. Whichever way the train is going, you're going to have to let the train keep going that way. So if the train was originally going to run over this one person, you have to leave it there. Why? Because if you were to turn the train, you're then all of a sudden treating these people's lives as a means for saving the other people. Well, if you just don't touch anything, you're not disrespecting, you're not using anyone simply as a means to your goals. So I think this sort of case, for many of us intuitively, the right thing to do is to kill the ordinary people, because one cancer cure is going to cure cancer. However, and so this is something the consequentialist view can capture very nicely. A deontologist view is not going to be able to explain it as neatly. All right. If you're anything like me, your mind is kind of partly elsewhere today. So because of this, we're going to end at this point. We'll end a little early. So again, for those of you who came in late, there's not going to, the way the semester is going to work is I'm pushing everything back a week. Basically, we have class today, no weekly assignment other than the one that's due on Thursday, which was on the stuff from last week. Then next week is going to be another one video class on Tuesday. The week after will be one video and one synchronous video and one asynchronous video. And then after that will be 3 weeks of papers, but the paper will be due a week after the last class. The signpost assignment will be due 1 week after is listed on the syllabus as of right now. And then the thesis week, or the assignment where I ask you to write out your thesis for the paper, will be due a week after it says on the syllabus right now. I'll be giving out a new schedule tomorrow. But basically all this means is think about some of this stuff. Think, is this a sort of thing that I find interesting enough that I want to write a final paper on how to make this decision, like arguing for or against a consequentialist view? And then next week, we're going to be talking about online hate speech and how we go about deciding what should be done and what regulations. This is more practical, everyday sort of concern. But I think that's all I want to say today. I'm going to stop the recording. If anyone has any questions and wants to stay after class, I'm just going to stand here for a few minutes. Everyone else, I will see you next week.